September 1st, 1939. Just before dawn. The Polish border is quiet. Too quiet. A thin morning fog hangs over the fields. Farmhouses are still dark. Civilians are asleep, unaware that history is already moving toward them. Then, without warning, the sky begins to scream. German aircraft tear through the clouds. Bombs fall with mechanical precision. Railways, airfields, roads, all hit at once. By sunrise, Europe is on fire. This is the moment everyone is taught to remember. World War II began when Germany invaded Poland. That sentence appears in textbooks. It appears in documentaries. It feels clean, simple, definite. But it is wrong. Because wars do not begin with explosions. They begin long before the first bomb ever falls. What happened in Poland was not the beginning. It was the moment denial finally collapsed. By September 1939, the war was already unavoidable. The decisions had been made. The warnings ignored. The consequences locked in. Poland was not the start. Poland was the receipt. And to understand why, we have to go back. Not to 1939, but to a broken peace built 20 years earlier. In 1918, the guns of the First World War fell silent. Europe was exhausted. Empires had collapsed. Millions were dead. The world wanted one thing above all else: never again. And so, in the halls of power, politicians promised a peace that would last forever. A peace enforced by treaties, by borders, by punishment. Especially punishment. Germany, blamed for the war, was forced to kneel. Its army dismantled. Its economy strangled. Its pride publicly shattered. On paper, this was justice. In reality, it was something far more dangerous. Because humiliation does not create peace. It creates memory. Memory of loss. Memory of shame. Memory of anger waiting patiently for a voice. Throughout the 1920s, Europe tried to move on. Cafes reopened. Cities rebuilt. Music returned to the streets. But beneath the surface, nothing was healed. Germany was not stable. It was restrained. And restraint is temporary. By the early 1930s, cracks were everywhere. Economic collapse wiped out savings overnight. Unemployment crushed families. Faith in democracy evaporated. People didn't want debate. They wanted certainty. They wanted someone to explain their suffering. Someone to blame. Someone to promise restoration. And that promise came wrapped in nationalism, revenge, and destiny. Not with tanks. Not with bombs. But with words. The world watched this transformation happen. Slowly. Clearly. Publicly. And chose not to intervene. Because the memory of the last war was still too painful. Because leaders feared another catastrophe. Because peace, even a false one, felt safer than confrontation. So when warning signs appeared, they were rationalized away. It's just rhetoric. It's just politics. It's just internal German affairs. The world convinced itself that the danger was exaggerated. That this time, it would be different. By the time German troops crossed into Poland, the final act had already begun. The armies were ready. The factories were running. The alliances were set. The war had been rehearsed in silence for years. September 1st, 1939 was not a spark. It was an explosion at the end of a very long fuse. And the most terrifying part, almost every step toward it, was legal. Accepted. Ignored. World War II did not start because diplomacy failed in 1939. It started because it succeeded in hiding the truth. For far too long. And to understand how that happened, we must look at the peace that was designed to prevent war and instead guaranteed it. June 28, 1919. The Hall of Mirrors, Versailles. Sunlight pours through tall windows, reflecting off gold and glass. French officials stand confident, British delegates look tired but relieved. At the far end of the hall, Germany stands alone. No negotiation. No discussion. Only a document placed on the table. Sign it, or the war resumes. This was not peace. This was a verdict. The Treaty of Versailles did not aim to rebuild Europe. It aimed to punish Germany so severely that war would never be possible again. On paper, it made sense. Germany lost territory. Its army was reduced to a shadow, no tanks, no air force, barely a navy. Its colonies were stripped away. And worst of all, Germany was forced to accept full responsibility for the war. One sentence. One clause. But that sentence branded an entire nation as guilty. Not its leaders. Not its generals. Its people. To the victors, this was justice. To Germans, it was humiliation written into law. The economic punishment was crushing. Reparations demanded payments so massive they crippled the state. To survive, Germany printed money. The result? Hyperinflation. Savings vanished overnight. Pensions became worthless. A loaf of bread cost a wheelbarrow of cash. Middle-class families, the backbone of stability, were destroyed. And when people lose everything, they don't defend democracy. They look for someone to tear the system down. But here is the critical mistake the world made. They confused silence with stability. Germany did not rebel immediately. There was no instant uprising. No invasion. No revenge. From the outside, it looked calm. From the inside, it was boiling. A generation grew up hearing one message again and again. You were betrayed. You were humiliated. This is not your fault. And the treaty that was meant to close the chapter of war became a daily reminder of national shame. Every military parade in France, every victory celebration in Britain, every mention of German guilt. It all reinforced the same truth in German minds. This peace was never meant to be fair. Meanwhile, the rest of Europe relaxed. Leaders told themselves the problem had been solved, that Germany was weak, that another war was impossible. The League of Nations was formed, hopeful, idealistic, untested. Diplomacy replaced deterrence. Words replaced power. And for a while, it worked. But peace built on resentment does not last. It only waits. By the mid-1920s, Germany was still bound by the treaty, but the world's attention was drifting elsewhere. New crises. New elections. New fears. And slowly, quietly, the enforcement of the treaty weakened. Restrictions were bent. Violations ignored. Warnings dismissed. Because enforcing the treaty too harshly risked another war. And no one wanted that. So Europe chose the easier path. Look away. The Treaty of Versailles didn't fail overnight. It failed because it misunderstood human nature. It assumed humiliation would create obedience. That punishment would erase pride. That a defeated nation would simply accept its place forever. History had already proven otherwise. And soon, it would prove it again. Because the treaty did not eliminate Germany's desire for power. It merely taught Germany one lesson. If the world feared war more than injustice, then fear could be used as a weapon. And someone was already preparing to use it. Berlin. Early 1930s. The streets are busy, but the faces are empty. Men stand in long lines outside factories that will never reopen. War veterans sit on corners, medals pinned to coats they can no longer afford to replace. Shop windows are full, but no one is buying. This is not a battlefield, yet it feels like defeat. Germany is not at war. Germany is breaking. The Great Depression hits like a second invasion. American loans vanish overnight. Banks collapse. Businesses fold. Unemployment explodes. 6 million Germans are suddenly without work. Not soldiers. Not rebels. Ordinary men. Fathers. Brothers. Sons. The democratic government argues in parliament while people starve outside. Every speech sounds the same. Every promise rings hollow. Democracy does not look weak because it failed once. It looks weak because it failed when it mattered most. And when institutions fail, people stop believing in rules. Anger spreads faster than hunger. Street fights become common. Political violence becomes normal. Communists march. Nationalists respond. Germany turns into a battleground of ideas, each promising salvation, each demanding loyalty. But only one offers something powerful: purpose, not policy, not compromise, meaning. The message is simple. You are not poor because you are weak. You are poor because you were betrayed. Germany did not lose the war, it was stabbed in the back. This idea is repeated until it feels true. It explains everything. It removes guilt. It replaces shame with anger. And anger is easier to live with. What makes this moment dangerous is not desperation alone. It is organization. Uniforms return to the streets, unofficial at first. Marches grow larger. Voices grow louder. And the world notices. Newspapers report on the chaos. Foreign leaders shake their heads, but they see instability, not strategy. They see noise, not momentum. Inside Germany, something critical is happening. Fear is being transformed into identity. People who once disagreed now share the same enemy. People who once doubted now repeat the same slogans. And slowly, the idea of peace itself begins to feel insulting. Peace means accepting humiliation. Peace means accepting limits. Peace means accepting that Germany will never rise again. That idea is rejected, not in secret, but openly. By the time elections come, the choice feels inevitable. Not because everyone agrees, but because everyone is afraid. Afraid of chaos. Afraid of communism. Afraid of losing what little remains. And so power does not arrive with a coup. It arrives legally, predictably, almost quietly. The system hands control to those who promise to destroy it. Outside Germany, the reaction is muted. Some are concerned. Others are curious. Many are hopeful. They believe extremism will soften with responsibility. That power will tame rhetoric. They have seen radicals before. They believe this is just another phase. They are wrong. Because this movement does not seek compromise. It seeks reversal. Not reform. Revenge. Germany's breakdown is not sudden. It is methodical. Every failure of democracy strengthens the argument against it. Every foreign hesitation confirms the belief that threats work. And as Germany stabilizes internally, it begins to look outward. Not yet with armies. Not yet with guns. But with intent. And intent, once formed, rarely stays contained. Germany did not fall into extremism by accident. It was guided there. In the early 1930s, the country is exhausted, not just economically, but emotionally. People are tired of explanations. Tired of experts. Tired of waiting. They don't want complexity. They want clarity. And clarity arrives in the form of certainty. One voice, louder than the rest, cuts through the noise. Not calm, not reasonable, but confident. Every speech follows the same pattern. First, identify the pain. Then, identify the enemy. Finally, promise restoration. It works because it feels personal. You were wronged. You were humiliated. You deserve more. Crowds listen, not because they are hypnotized, but because the words explain their lives. For the first time since the war, someone is not asking Germans to accept reality. He is promising to rewrite it. What makes this moment decisive is not charisma alone. It is repetition. The same messages everywhere. Posters, rallies, newspapers, radios. Truth becomes less important than familiarity. And slowly, outrage turns into agreement. People who once scoffed begin to nod. People who once resisted begin to stay silent. Silence becomes consent. But anger alone cannot build a state. It must be organized. Uniforms create belonging. Marches create momentum. Symbols replace debate. And symbols are powerful, because they simplify the world into us and them. Once that division is accepted, violence no longer feels extreme. It feels necessary. The most dangerous lie told in this period is not about enemies. It is about time. You don't have to act now. Let the system run its course. This will burn out. Foreign governments repeat this lie to themselves. They believe the movement will collapse under responsibility, that governance will force moderation. But extremism does not weaken when given power. It adapts. By the time control is consolidated, opposition is fragmented. Institutions are reshaped legally. Laws are rewritten. Courts comply. There is no dramatic collapse. Only a steady narrowing of choice. And once choice disappears, resistance becomes dangerous. Outside Germany, leaders are relieved. The chaos seems to be ending. The streets look calmer. The economy appears to stabilize. This feels like progress. They mistake order for safety. They mistake control for peace. Inside Germany, something irreversible has occurred. Anger has found a voice. And that voice now speaks for the state. The message changes. No longer just resentment, but destiny. Germany is not merely recovering. Germany is awakening. And an awakened nation, convinced it has been wronged by history, does not ask permission to correct it. The first violation is small. So small, in fact, that many choose not to see it. A few extra soldiers here. A training exercise there. A factory producing civilian equipment that looks suspiciously military. On paper, the rules are still being followed. In reality, they are being tested. Germany is not charging toward war. It is walking toward it, slowly, deliberately, watching carefully to see who reacts. No one does. By 1933, Germany is officially forbidden from rebuilding its military. But quietly, officers begin planning again. Designs are drawn. Strategies discussed. Not for defense. For speed. For shock. For wars that would be decided before the enemy could even respond. The lesson of the First World War is clear. Long wars destroy nations. The next war must be short. Decisive. Over before fear can turn into resistance. Rearmament accelerates. An air force appears. Renamed. Reclassified. But unmistakable. New tanks are tested in secret. Conscription returns under different names. Each step is a gamble. And each time, the world hesitates. Then comes 1936. German troops march into the Rhineland. Demilitarized zone created to protect Europe from another invasion. This is not a bluff. It is a dare. German commanders are terrified. They have orders to retreat immediately if confronted. The army is not ready. The risk is enormous. But no one moves. France hesitates. Britain urges calm. Diplomacy replaces deterrence. And in that silence, something critical happens. Germany learns the truth. No one wants war badly enough to stop them. From this moment on, everything changes. The fear that once restrained German action evaporates. Confidence replaces caution. If this could be done without consequence, what else was possible? Factories expand openly now. The economy shifts toward military production. Unemployment vanishes, replaced by uniforms and wages. To the German public, this looks like success. Pride returns. Order returns. Purpose returns. And with it, loyalty. Abroad, leaders reassure their people. This is understandable. They are only restoring dignity. They have legitimate grievances. Each excuse buys time. Time Germany uses well. The war before the war is not fought with bullets. It is fought with assumptions. Assumptions that treaties matter. That leaders will act rationally. that peace is the default. But peace is not a default. It is a choice. And Europe is choosing not to choose. By the end of the 1930s, Germany is no longer pretending. The military is real. The strategy is real. The ambition is obvious. What remains unclear is whether anyone will stop it. And that question is about to be answered. Without a single shot being fired, by the late 1930s, the signs are no longer subtle. Germany is rearming openly. Treaties are being ignored. Military parades march through city streets in full view of the world. This is not secrecy anymore. It is confidence. And Europe sees it. But seeing something and responding to it are very different things. Britain is haunted by memory. The First World War left an entire generation buried in mud. Every town has a monument. Every family has a loss. Leaders remember the trenches, the endless casualty lists, the feeling that civilization itself nearly collapsed. So when faced with another potential conflict, their instinct is not resistance. It is avoidance. Anything is better than another war. France, meanwhile, feels exposed. Its population is smaller. Its losses were heavier. Its confidence shattered. Defensive lines are built. Strategies focus on protection, not confrontation. France prepares to survive, not to prevent. Together, Britain and France convince themselves of a dangerous idea. If Germany can be satisfied peacefully, then peace can be preserved. Concessions are framed as compromise. Retreat is framed as wisdom. Every demand is weighed against one question. Is this worth another war? And each time, the answer is no. This is not cowardice. It is exhaustion. An entire continent is traumatized. The public does not want speeches about honor. They want stability. They want normal lives. And politicians respond accordingly. Germany understands this perfectly. Each demand is calibrated. Each move is designed to appear reasonable. Borders drawn by unfair treaties. Ethnic Germans seeking reunification. Historical claims dressed as justice. The language is deliberate, and it works. Every time Europe stays silent, the cost of resistance increases. Stopping Germany early would have been simple. Stopping Germany later will require blood. But later always feels like tomorrow's problem. Behind closed doors, some warn of disaster. Military officers, diplomats, observers who understand momentum. They are ignored. Because warning about war makes you unpopular. Because preparation looks like provocation. Because peace feels fragile and precious. Silence becomes policy. Not written. Not declared. But practiced. And silence sends a message. Not of peace, but of permission. Germany hears that message clearly. And acts accordingly. March 1938. No invasion force. No artillery barrage. No battlefield. German troops cross into Austria and are welcomed. Crowds line the streets. Flags wave. Church bells ring. This is not conquest. It is celebration. For years, Austria's independence had been protected by international agreements. Any union with Germany was forbidden, but agreements only matter if someone enforces them. And no one does. The justification is simple. Austria is German-speaking. The people want unity. Why should outsiders interfere? It sounds reasonable. It sounds peaceful. It is neither. Behind the scenes, pressure is relentless. Threats. Ultimatums. Political intimidation. Austria's leadership knows resistance would mean isolation. No allies will come. So they choose survival. They step aside. The annexation is completed without a single shot fired. For Germany, it is a revelation. Borders can be erased. Sovereignty can be undone. And the world will applaud or stay quiet. For Europe, this is a turning point. The line has been crossed. Not just militarily, but morally. An independent nation has disappeared. And the response is nothing. Publicly, leaders express concern. Privately, they breathe relief. At least there was no war. At least the situation was resolved. Germany draws its conclusion. Force does not need violence to succeed. It needs belief. Belief that resistance will never come. Austria's fall teaches a lesson that will soon be repeated. If territory can be taken without blood, then blood may not be required at all. And that belief makes the next demand inevitable. September 1938. Munich, Germany. Inside a grand hall, 4 men sit around a table. No soldiers. No gunfire. No war. Just paper, pens, and promises. One nation's future is being decided without that nation present. Czechoslovakia is not invited. The demand is framed carefully. Germany claims the Sudetenland, a border region of Czechoslovakia, home to ethnic Germans. The argument sounds familiar. Self-determination, fairness, correction of old wrongs. Germany insists this is the final demand. After this, there will be peace. Britain's Prime Minister believes him. He wants to believe him, because the alternative is unthinkable. War over a distant country. A country most people have never heard of. A country the public has no appetite to defend. So Britain and France agree. Czechoslovakia is told to surrender its defences for the sake of peace. The agreement is signed. Cameras flash. Hands shake. Smiles appear. A piece of paper is waved proudly. Peace for our time. The words echo across Europe. People cheer. Church bells ring. A war has been avoided. Or so it seems. But for Czechoslovakia, this is not peace. It is dismemberment. Its strongest defences are gone. Its borders exposed. Its allies proven unreliable. Its fate is sealed. Germany wastes no time. Troops move in. Factories and fortifications are seized intact. Military strength increases overnight. The balance of power shifts dramatically. And for the first time, something changes. Germany no longer pretends this is about unity. It is about dominance. In private, even the architects of the agreement feel unease. Because the truth is obvious. Every concession has only made Germany stronger. Every compromise has pushed war closer, not farther away. But admitting that now would mean admitting failure. And that is politically impossible. The Munich Agreement is remembered as appeasement. But at the time, it felt like courage. The courage to say no to war. The tragedy is that courage was applied in the wrong direction. Germany learns the final lesson. Threats work. Deadlines work. And fear is more powerful than treaties. There is nothing left to test. Only to take. After Munich, there is no doubt left in Berlin. The gamble has paid off. No armies mobilized. No borders defended. No consequences enforced. What was once a strategy becomes a certainty. Germany is not being restrained. Germany is being enabled. The tone changes. Demands are no longer framed as negotiations. They are delivered as expectations. Deadlines replace diplomacy. Threats replace requests. And the world adjusts. In March 1939, the illusion finally shatters. German forces move into the rest of Czechoslovakia, territory that is not German-speaking, that was never claimed under self-determination. This is naked expansion. There is no excuse left. For the first time, Britain and France respond differently. Guarantees are issued. Lines are drawn. Poland will be protected. But the timing is fatal. Germany reads the situation clearly. These guarantees are words, not positions. And words, without action, have already been proven meaningless. Military planning accelerates. This time, there will be no partial measures. No waiting. No gradual testing. The next move will force a decision. Either Europe fights, or it accepts the new order. Behind the scenes, Diplomacy continues, not to prevent war, but to choose its terms. Agreements are signed. Calculations made. Everyone is buying time. Germany's leadership believes the moment has arrived. The enemy is divided. Public opinion is hesitant. Memories of the last war still paralyze decision-makers. This is the window. And windows like this do not stay open long. For the first time, war is not just possible. It is planned. Late August 1939. Europe is holding its breath. Publicly, negotiations continue. Messages move back and forth. Assurances are made. Privately, the decision has already been taken. Poland is next. Poland is not chosen by accident. It is strategically vital, geographically exposed, and politically complicated. Germany demands access. Corridor. A city. A reasonable adjustment. Poland refuses. Because this time, the cost of compromise is obvious. Britain and France issue guarantees. They promise support. They promise action. But promises have been made before, and Germany has learned how much they are worth. In the early hours of September 1st, 1939, the waiting ends. German forces cross the Polish border at multiple points. Airfields are bombed, railways destroyed, communication severed. This is not negotiation. This is execution. The strategy is brutal and efficient. Strike everywhere at once. Move faster than diplomacy. Decide the outcome before politics can react. This is the war Germany prepared for. Short. Decisive. Overwhelming. Poland fights back, fiercely. But it is alone. Within days, the situation becomes impossible. And then, from the east, another blow falls. Poland is crushed between powers. The guarantees arrive too late to matter. On September 3rd, 1939, Britain and France declare war. The words are spoken. The papers are signed. World War II has officially begun. But no one cheers. No one celebrates. Because everyone understands the truth. This declaration does not start the war. It admits that it was never stopped. The lie is finally exposed. The lie that compromise could satisfy ambition. The lie that fear could preserve peace. The lie that delay was wisdom. Poland is not the cause of the war. Poland is the proof. Proof that silence has consequences. That ignored warnings accumulate. That peace, once surrendered piece by piece, cannot be reclaimed at the last moment. After the declarations are made, after the borders harden, after Europe slides back into war, a single question hangs in the air. Could this have been stopped? Not in 1939. Not in the final days of August. But earlier. Much earlier. The uncomfortable answer is yes. Not with certainty. Not without risk. But with courage. The first opportunity came with the peace itself. A treaty that punished instead of rebuilt. That humiliated instead of stabilized. A peace designed to end a war, without understanding why that war had happened. It planted resentment and called it justice. And resentment never stays quiet. Another moment came during rearmament. When treaties were violated openly. When forbidden weapons reappeared. When rules were tested. At that point, resistance would have been simple. Germany was not ready. Its leadership was unsure. Its generals feared confrontation. One firm response could have ended everything. Instead, there was hesitation. Then came the Rhineland. A moment so fragile that even German commanders expected failure. Orders were given to retreat if challenged. They never were. That silence did not preserve peace. It rewrote the balance of power. Austria, Czechoslovakia. Each was treated as an exception. Each was sacrificed to buy time. But time was not neutral. Time favored the side that was preparing. And this is the truth history rarely comforts us with. War was not inevitable. But avoiding it required choosing danger early, instead of catastrophe later. The leaders of the 1930s were not villains. They were human, traumatized by the last war, pressured by public opinion, afraid of being remembered as the ones who started another catastrophe. Ironically, that fear ensured one. Prevention would have meant confronting reality, that peace without enforcement is illusion, that appeasement teaches aggression, that silence is not neutrality, it is a signal. World War II was not caused by one invasion. It was caused by a pattern. And patterns only work when everyone plays their part. World War II did not begin on September 1st, 1939. That was only the moment the world stopped pretending. The real beginning came earlier, when fear replaced responsibility, when delay was mistaken for wisdom, when peace became something to protect at any cost, even when that cost was truth. The war began when treaties were signed without foresight, when violations were ignored for comfort, when leaders chose to believe what felt safer, instead of what was happening. It began when people said, "Not yet. Not here. Not worth fighting over." Until one day, there was nothing left not to fight over. Poland was not the start. It was the confirmation. The final proof that peace, once eroded piece by piece, cannot be defended at the last moment. This is why World War II matters beyond history. Because its lesson is not about tanks or generals. It is about decisions made in calm rooms by people who believed they were choosing peace. Every generation tells itself, "This time is different. This threat will pass. This problem can be managed later." History watches quietly, because it knows something we often forget. Ignoring danger does not remove it. It trains it. World War II was the war Germany prepared for, and the war Europe refused to prepare against. Until it was too late, the war did not start with bombs. It started with silence.